Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series of our introducing our affiliated partners for the Sea Turtle Rescue Alliance. So last month we were in the Maldives. We had our Marine Center joining us, and then this month we've traveled all the way to the Pacific, and we now have Temano Moana joining us tonight to introduce their rescue center and the work they're doing in French Polynesia. So we're joined today by Dr. Cécile and Dr. Jade. They both work at the rescue center, and we're going to go over some of the work they do, what species they treat, etc. If you do have questions, please, even though this is recorded, you can ask them in the YouTube comment section or on Facebook, and we'll try to reach out to them to get your answers straight away. So first of all, would you mind letting us know, I've just introduced your names, but if you want to tell us your position within the charity and what is the charity about, where are you located at?
Moana. So my name is Cécile Gaspar. I'm French. I was born and raised there. I moved to Tahiti 33 years ago, and I decided to create a foundation, a NGO called Te Manao Te Moana. It means Spirit of the Ocean, and this was 21 years ago. And why did I decide to create this foundation so much long time ago? It was mainly to try to join research, education, and conservation together. So even though I'm a vet, I went to the best vet school in the world, which is called Nantes, but Jade is from the same school. But after doing my vet degree, I wanted to learn more about business and how, as a vet, we can manage business. So I did an MBA. And then I moved to French Polynesian, and I felt that I had a mission to help connected local population and researchers. And so the mission of Te Mano Te Moana is really oriented into observation, then research or conservation program, depending on the issues, and then trying to involve local population and school kids also, which is a big portion of what we do in education. And so why did I create this Sea Turtle Care Center back in 2004? It was not my idea at all. It was an idea. It was a need or request from the French Polynesian government. So they said, could you help us do that? Because we don't know what to do with our sick turtle that people are bringing to us in our office. We don't know what to do. And even though we have local vets, they were not prepared. And they didn't have any place, to put the turtle. So this is how it all started. And just to finish with the presentation, after I did that, at the same time, I started to do a PhD in marine ecology. And I specialize more in fish, in stingrays. And I used to be more specialized in marine mammal surrounding before. So anyway, I dive in sea turtle just because the government asked me, and now I'm fully part of, the sea turtle conservation more. And this is how we developed. And back 2 years ago, we moved from one island called Moorea to the main island of Tahiti. And we have expanded our strategy. And this is where, I felt we needed to have another vet in the team. So Jade was hired like 4 years ago now. And she's really helping us developing our programs and everything in French Polynesia. And she can explain more what she's doing.
Hello, so I'm Jade, and I am currently the program conservations coordinator. And so I have worked for Te Manao Te Moana for 4 years now. And I am from French, but I moved to Tahiti more than 4 years ago. And I begin to work with Te Manao Te Moana by coordinating our nesting sites for green turtle on Te Charoa Atoll. And so I did this for one season, one nesting season, and then I began to work for our care center as a vet, and now for all the conservation programs of the organization.
Thank you so much. It was an interesting point that you mentioned that you were doing part of the nesting of green sea turtles. So now that you have the rescue center, is it mostly also green sea turtles that you receive as patients, or what species do you work mostly with in terms of the rescue center, not so much of the nesting?
So in the rescue center, since the beginning, we really specialize on marine turtle, not on freshwater or land turtle, of course. And since we have opened, I think the ratio will be like 75% of green and 25% of oxbill turtle. This is the two main species we have in French Polynesia. However, we have received one careta, one loggerhead, and we have received four olive ridley. But olive ridley, they were there just, passing through our area. A lot of them had injuries due to ghost nest. And the one carita loghead we had was unique, but we think there is more and has been more in French Polynesia, but the population has declined. So we don't receive them so much. So overall, it's mainly green and then oxbear.
Okay. And how many turtles do you usually see or get per year has patients? How?
So by year we have more or less 10 cases of stranded turtles, and we also receive the hatchlings from nesting sites, hatchlings that are stuck inside nests and can't be released directly to the ocean because they are too weak. And also sometimes that are predated by crabs. So more or less 10 stranded turtles by years and 20 hatchlings by years.
Okay. And out of those turtles, the more juvenile adults that you receive, because the hatchlings, you've just explained why they get there. Why do you see those other turtles arriving? What are the main injuries or ailments that they arrive to your center with?
So I can say that the causes have evolved since we started 20 years ago. At first, I would receive, I would say, 90% of phone calls from people that have witnessed a floating turtle. And the main cause was poaching. So we still have a lot of poaching for meat in French Polynesia, not the eggs, but the meat. And the way the people collect them is using their spear gun, the fishing gun. And so they would go into the neck or into the head or sometimes the flippers, but the turtle had infection due to that. And this has switched over the years slightly by adding the pollution cause. So either they ingest plastic or they are entangled into, plastic or ghost nest. And the third one that we have increased, that we have seen a huge increase lately is the boat collision, which is starting to be a major program here in French Polynesia. And this is also linked to the fact that our subadult population in our lagoon is increasing as well. And we think they are starting to be adapted to the ambient noise from the boat, and they don't escape boats when they come up to breathe, and they get stuck by boats.
Okay, because
So
I was
these
going to
are
ask you that if you had noticed the opposite, if you had noticed an increase in tourism or in boating around the islands, and that had led to an increase in injuries, or if you had
yeah.
noticed the opposite, increase in turtles and thus increase in accidents.
Well, yeah, clearly both, but the increase of tourism has started after COVID. And so we see more boats and people are getting, faster sometime in our lagoons. And we also see an increase in subadult green population. This is many green population in our lagoon, and we fear they are adapted to the ambient noise. And sometimes they select places like their habitat, which is really in a navigation route, so where we have the majority of the boats coming. So this is really starting to be a big issue. And this is why we are developing this huge project on trying to better understand this subadult population.
Wow. It's because you mentioned that you had been in a different island and now in Morea and now you moved to Tahiti. How does actually it operates within French Polynesia? Do you get calls from how many? Well, first, for people that might not know, can you explain a bit of the geography of French Polynesia? How many islands or how far apart maybe you'd be? And if it's easy to connect it, and if you get animals from all over the country or you're attending a specific region, how does it kind of work in your country?
Okay, so it's a good point because French Polynesia is as big as Europe as far as this surface. So it's 5 million square kilometers, 5 million. And we have 118 islands. Half of them have inhabitants. A lot of them have no habitants. And how do we connect and how do we get our turtle? It just depends on where the island is. Sometimes people will bring them to us, Tahiti and Morea are very close by boat. Or very often, if it's a remote island that has no airline, they first transfer them by boat. Then they go to the next island that has an airport. And then they go into the airport and then they transfer it to us. So sometimes it could be like a 5 hours trip before they arrive to our center. So it's quite long. This is why we are also developing a very large network of people that have been trained by us that could do the first, rescue actions before we decide to transfer the animals or not. Because these transfers sometimes are very long and could be more dangerous to the turtle if it's very sick. And so how do we get the call? We work very closely with the government. So they have a phone number that is spread out all over French Polynesia that everybody knows. And then they call us and we assess the health of the individual. And then we decide to transport it to our center. In addition, there is a second center in French Polynesia that was opened even before us. It's called the Bora Bora Eco Center. And it's located on Bora Bora Island, which is quite far from our place. So they are mainly receiving the children close to the area. And then we are receiving children from our area and all the remote islands, because now we are close close to the major airport of Tahiti. So it's easy for us to just get them as soon as they disembark from the plane.
Yeah, sounds like a whole logistical nightmare as well, but it was very similar to the Maldives, actually. The Atoll Marine Center was explaining it to us as well last month. It is basically around the same logistics, slightly probably less length in distance, but a same length in how long it takes the animals to get there. Sometimes a couple of days, just depending if you actually can find somebody that would be willing to transport those animals as well. And so we're discussing like how many animals you received a year, but like how many would you be able to house at any given time in your center? And like how is the setup of your center? How many tanks do you have and how does it work a little bit there?
So if I want to explain it briefly, the way we started back 20 years ago was with no background. We had no idea. So we really focused on trying to find a natural place where the water is the water from the natural lagoon around the island. We don't have to have pumps. We don't use any chlorine or anything to get the water, in good condition. So it's basically a place where we have natural sea water and natural currents that we just fence with fencing. And the depth is maximum 2 meters. So it's not very deep. Now we switch place, and now our location is twice bigger. So so it will be like 1,400 square meter. I don't know if this is something that makes sense, but with that, the government has decided how many children we can house. And so basically now we are at like around 20 juvenile and sub-adult turtle. And then we have small tanks where we keep our hatchling for a few months, usually less than 6 months. So I think we could have at the same time 20 turtle under care, and then as many hatchling as we could, because they are small and we have a bigger nursery.
And sorry to ask that because this is in addition to before, but are you always at capacity or do you have a specific season that you see more animals coming in versus another time of the year?
So we are not at maximum capacity. I think we never, because we keep them, as any center, and then as soon as they are releasable, we release them. So there is a turnover. We have had since the beginning some long-term resident turtle for which the issue is not fixed yet, and so they're not releasable, and so they're using space in our center. Right now we have 3. We have Jade will explain more the issues, but we have flooding issue, buoyancy issue, and we have one that is blind. But we never reach our maximum capacity, and if we were, I think we would always find solution anyway, because the main issue for us is to do the care as soon as they arrive, and then we could always have other places, or maybe try to release them a little sooner. But with 2 centers for all French Polynesia, I think we have enough capacity.
Okay, perfect. And so segueing from that, how is the veterinary care managed at your specific center? Is just the 2 of you that do the medical care of these animals? Do you have a team? How does it work over there?
I will let Jade finish, but I started by myself, and I started to be the president and the volunteer for 15 years. But then it started to increase the time, that I was supposed to be available for that. And there is a lot, as any center, a lot of work that we have to spend to feed them also and take care of the place. So that's why now we have a full team, and Jade will explain, but I'm more looking now my position now is strategy director. So I'm not day-to-day operation on the site. I'm trying to develop our foundation. And so Jade is on-site veterinarian, and she can explain more.
So yes, we have here in our care center, we have 2 technician people that feed the turtle and do the care every day when it's when it's a protocol that is well defined. And then when we have new turtles that are coming, we do with Cécile, we do all the protocol and all the care and treatment that they need. But for example, if the turtle need X-rays or complementary exams, we have a vet that has all what they need, and they come to our care center, and so we do all this exam in our care center, because sometimes we received turtles that were very, very big, and so it was impossible to bring them in the vet clinic for the X-rays. So yes, now we have a vet that come with all the materials that we need for the complementary exam, and for the blood sample as well. We work with labs in Tahiti. And so yes, we work with Cécile, and also we work a lot with the different veterinarian of France or other country to help us when we have cases that are difficult. And so it's very interesting for us to be in this group, to have more experience about vet study on sea turtles.
No, that's thank you. That's very interesting. Because that was gonna go for my other question, which would be, what kind of facilities do you have there aside from the number of tanks? What equipment would you have there? But I'm guessing that even the equipment that you might not have on site, you are able to bring in, as you were explaining. Do you want to expand a little bit more on that? Like, do you have a specific area that you can still do your treatments in-house, or you always have to, if the animals are not too big, take the animals to that vet clinic that's nearby you? Like, how does that work?
So in fact, when we moved to this place, we wonder if we would buy more equipment like X-ray, ultrasound, or other, equipment. And depending on the number of children, it's not always very, very cost effective. So basically what we have is we have a lab where we use it as a quarantine as well, which is quite big, in which we could have the containers for each turtle individually. And then each time we need to do more detailed exams, we take them either to the vet clinic or this veterinarian who has a big truck with everything in it. She comes to our place and we do X-rays, ultrasound. We could do anesthesia and everything with her because she has everything, and she goes to different places for doing that. And for everything that is blood or lab, we take the sample and we send them to the local labs. So right now we don't have very expensive equipment, and we felt it was not so much worth it to have all of this equipment because we prefer collaborating with local labs and local vets.
Okay, since you had discussed before that Jade would go into that, is if you're having those spear gun injuries or you're having the entanglements, etc., could you just explain a bit more on the medical side of it? Like, what kind of diseases then you see more, or like how have you been able to manage them okay? Or are things that are a bit out of reach sometimes in terms of the medicine that might be required or not? You find that you've been able to manage fine in this new location with all these resources that you're mentioning that you can always bring in as well.
So just to start, and Jen could finish, but yes, what we have been doing is more intense secondary exams to better understand what the children have. And even though, we have a lot of injuries due to spear guns, they're quite easy to look and to find in case, we receive a children, we see the damage caused by the spear. And usually this is leading to infection. So it's quite easy to do the diagnosis and to do some kind of medication and cure the wound. However, we always look at secondary reason, which could be that they were flooding and they were already sick, and then they get, spear gun. And so that's very important for us to do a lot of X-rays and blood sampling. So we are doing more and more. But also what is very interesting for us is to look at secondary effects of the first causes. And we have this big, and Jad could tell more, this big concern about buoyancy. That for some children has been taking a lot of time to be able to fix it. And this is a secondary, side effect of mainly spear gun injuries.
Yes, so yes, as Cécile explained, we have so poaching with spearfishing gun. That is one of the main cause, but often the problem when the turtle is better is almost always Beyoncé disorder after spear gun impact. And so this is depending where the air is inside the turtle, inside the lungs or inside the coelomic cavity. And so yes, we have difficulties with this problem because, for example, currently we have three turtles, and two of them are affected by Beyoncé disorders. And for the moment, we don't find any treatments that work very well on turtles. We do lots of rehabilitation exercises with rate, for example, to try to make them go deeper again, but it's very difficult just to find treatments when the air is inside the coelomic cavity. That is the case for these two turtles.
Yes, and to add to that, we have been trying to ask for helps, from our friends and vets, but each case, as you know, is different. So when we go to this French conference, with some of our colleagues, we always compare our cases, and we had also some cases where, without doing any specific treatment, after a few weeks, the turtle just makes it and is able to swim down again and sink again, and then we can release them. So we are looking at consequences on the lung tissue, which is very hard to cure. And sometimes just by putting some weight on them, and try to help them go decrease and exhale the air, we can manage it. Sometimes we have been trying to take the air out with a syringe, and we can see they are deflating. But as soon as they breathe again, they are just re-inflating their coelomic cavity. So there is a lot that we have also to learn from other places. And that's why, we are very interesting to be inserted in this group,
Yeah, for sure. Buoyancy syndrome, it's a whole theme in itself that deserves its own conference just to discuss different approaches on being a cause that's physiological or behavioral in these animals. So does your center, aside from because I guess it's how you actually initially started, does the center carry out any research that is either pertaining to turtles or to other things within the marine environment? Or what are like the pillars of your organization?
So we have three main pillars. Conservation is mainly our city care center. We have a more research-oriented pillars that is more dedicated to wildlife, sea turtle in the wild, with the two phases, which is the nesting area and the subadult inner lagoon. And then the third one is communication education program. So to go to the third one, education program, we do a lot of school program. We welcome the kids in our center. We have a huge place to welcome, the classes, and we have reached in 20 years, but we have reached over 150,000 kids. So for Tahiti, which is a small population, it's a big number. And so we do from 6 years to, 18 years, and we have different program and education curriculum and games and materials. We just have developed an online education platform on Cicero to help them understand. We also work in what we call educative marine area, which is a concept for which the school kids are taking ownership of an area they want to protect, which is very important here in French Polynesia. It's a very strong way to help local population accept MPAs. So we do a lot of that, and then we do major sensibilization campaign, awareness campaign. We just did the last one on boat collision, on sea turtle, of course, also on marine mammals and on human swimming. So this is a big portion of what we do. The Sea Turtle Care Center, so Jade is managing it also, and we try to look at what we have learned as far as body condition, length, weight, disease, what treatment are working. So we try to gather all of our information and try to exchange with other care center. And then in the central pillar of more research, right now we have mainly focused on nesting, trying to better understand one nesting site and the migration of adults. So we know now that the female nesting area close to our place are migrating to Fiji, sometimes all the way to New Caledonia, to Wallis and Futuna, to American Samoa. So we learned that. We are just in the process of learning where the males are migrating. If they do, we don't know that. So we have started doing that 20 years ago. So we have a huge bank of data, and I was able to present these results at the One Ocean Congress at UNOC in Nice last June. And now we are trying to focus and look for funding, which I guess we all are looking for funding, to develop a more detailed program on juvenile turtle, green sea turtle juvenile in our lagoon, and what is their habitat, and at what stage their living area to go to maybe their reproduction place.
You're keeping busy. Since you were talking about the education component of the NGO so much, actually, obviously, you're doing these trainings, these educational activities. What can, in return, in your opinion, members of the community do to help you guys and to help your cause?
So I will have Jade explain our network, Citizen Science Network, but what I wanted to add, which I've been witnessing living here for over 30 years, is the change of behavior of the local population and tourists. They are more aware about, impact of pollution and impact of boats, impact of global warming. But what is interesting in our case is that our sea turtle care center is open to the public. I know in France and in some countries, people are not allowed to go and see the turtle under treatment. Here, it's the contrary. We have this huge internal lagoon that is right in the middle of a resort for which we are partner. So anybody could come and visit and see our floating turtle. They could observe us during our care and everything. So we have this huge also role in trying to get people understand what we do and how they could act, when they go back to their place, either they are Polynesian, living here, or they are visitors, but this is very important. And then because we have a lot of tourists, they come here for scuba diving or snorkeling. I mean, French Polynesia is really a place where a lot of people are dreaming to go underwater. This is where we have developed our program that we call TI ONU, which is citizen science based on photo identification that Jade could explain you more.
So yes, we work a lot with the local community and scuba diving center. So we do conferences, or we go to the different center where you have nautic activities. So to raise awareness among people about the protection and sea turtles, also the impact boat collisions, so to reduce the speed of the boats on the sea, and so to help us to examine pictures of sea turtles or the observations that can be very interesting for us, such as if they can observe a reproduction between male and females, or a male, because we don't see very often males around our islands. So yes, we try to explain how they can help us and to be involved in the sea turtles conservation. And also when we go on remote islands of French Polynesia, we try to train the people if they observe injured turtles, what are the first treatments, the first care that they need to do. And so we can work, for example, last year, thanks to it, we received two turtles from an island of 200 inhabitants on the islands. The person were trained, and so they arrived by plane. And so yes, it's very interesting to raise awareness among the local community here.
Is there any way they can also either the local community, not just a resort guest, but like, can they volunteer with you, or can they do any internships with you, or can they reach out to you in any way?
Yes, we have volunteers, so we have the educational parts of the organization and care center. So we have both. We have volunteer for the program with the schools, and we have volunteer to take care of the turtles. For example, when we are not on the center on the Sunday, or during day where we can be in the care center. So yes, they can be involved like this, and also in on Techarua, where we monitor the nesting sites. Every season we have like 20 to 30 persons that can come to our in our nesting sites to be involved and to do the monitoring of the nesting beaches. And
And so maybe what I'd like to add is that we work more with local population, and we are right now trying to gather as much knowledge possible on the place of the citron in the Polynesian culture. They used to be very sacred, animal, even though they were consumed for the meat, but they were selected for only, the king and the people of the higher hierarchy in the society. And so we try to do that to help gather this information that the young population don't know, and the older people are not so ready to share. And now we are extending our surveys and our program in South Pacific, in Wallis and Futuna, which is a French territory, but it's not far to Fiji, from Fiji. And we try to gather this local population to work with us also and help them develop some kind of questionnaire for the population, go and talk to them and try to better understand if the children are nesting in a place. So this is how we have witnessed 2 years ago now that when I went there first time, that the hawksbill are nesting in their islands. They didn't know, they had no idea, they would not go and check. So now this year, Jade is going again in 1 month, and we are trying to have them set up a nice, monitoring program. So our goal with Te Mano Te Moana is to expand the number of people that we can train, and so that they do their own observation in on islands in French Polynesia and more in the South Pacific countries.
That's incredible. Yeah, and especially because you are also spread across that whole area of the Pacific. It's so wide, and it's incredible to be able to have that reach and to find out those things like hawksbills are nesting somewhere that people didn't really even understand, that realize that. This might be a difficult one for you to answer, and maybe each of you will have a different answer, but given different experiences. But could you briefly share one of maybe either a very interesting or rewarding case, even if that case of that patient didn't end up in a positive note for the animal necessarily, but like if you can remember anything that you'd like to share of like a very interesting case, rewarding case for yourselves.
Okay, so I will start by one that I really remember that has been really touching for me. That Jade didn't witness because she was not with us at the time, and unfortunately, the story didn't make it. She died after some time, and even though we thought she would make it, it's a turtle that came and was. We had a few cases like that. I didn't mention it. A turtle that have been injured by sharks, and sometimes we have a front flipper missing or rear flipper missing. We had some cases where the turtle is dead, the head has been bitten, and we can tell it's by sharks. Anyway, so this turtle came and she had the two front flipper fully cut, and one was fully infected. The bones was really bad and was like destroyed. The other side was fresh, and she really had not even 1 centimeter of flipper remaining anyway. So we wonder what we would do with her. We thought, of course, that maybe it's better for us to euthanize her, because she has no hopes for survival. And so, but basically she had energy and everything. So anyway, I decided to try and see. So we took care of her for like a month or so, and she managed it. The two wounds were perfect. And when we tested her in our lagoon, we are like, she's going to float and she's going to be like that. And we, what could we do with her? Is she going to be released? And in fact, she really showed that she was adapting right away. As soon as we put her in the water, she started moving the two rear flipper like a swimming pattern, swimming movement. And right away, she went down to 2 meters and sat on the floor, and then came up and breathed and come down. And she was like very comfortable. So we were like, wow, we learned a lot. And in the same case, we had this turtle coming to lay eggs with a front flipper missing or rear flipper missing, and they can manage it. So it's always a good lesson for us as humans to see how much they can adapt, and it's fascinating.
And another case that it's a turtle that we released. So it's a good story. We received, it was 1 or 2 years ago, it was an hawksbill turtle that came from Moorea, so the island just in front of Tahiti. And so she had 3 of spearfishing gun inside the neck. And so it was very open, but not very, very deep. So we did the sutures of these wounds. But so after this, she was better, but she had a buoyancy problems disorder. And so for 4 months, she was floating and she couldn't dive anymore. So we did lots of X-rays. So we discovered that the air was inside the lungs and not into the cavity, the costomic cavity. So we did a treatment for an antibiotic for the lungs. And so after a few months, one day we arrived and she was sleeping into the lagoon under rocks. So from one day to another, she managed to dive again. And so we released this turtle, but it was after like more than 6 months floating in our lagoon, and she managed to dive again. So we have hope for our turtles that are floating.
Yeah, it is incredible, isn't it? How little we still know about these animals, but how resilient and how they keep surprising us. Either because it was a turtle without flippers in the front that still is able to dive, or another one that's refusing to dive for a while until she is able to do that click and be able to do that again. But they are actually animals that do they hold up a lot, and they heal from incredible places, which is also why I think it's interesting this kind of community even to discuss to other people. Is that sometimes if we're thinking more on the mammal bird side of things, people don't give them enough credit to reptiles, especially marine reptiles, into how much they can endure and come out the other way if they're given the time. And so this is why then sharing this kind of stories, people are like, oh, really? This can happen? It's like, yeah, yeah. And so now I guess to finish, what would be then maybe your favorite fact about sea turtle, or why? I guess Dr. Cécile said that she came about sea turtles kind of by being directed that way. She was chosen to be. But if you have any favorite facts about sea turtles, or why did you want to work with them, this is a time.
I would just add that even though I didn't choose, I was really into marine mammals, and try to understand their life cycle and their threats and everything. And as a vet, do a lot of stranding and necropsies. And then I became more involved in fish, and the two of them have a common particularities is that they live in the ocean, but only in the ocean. And one is what is fascinating for me for sea turtle is that is the link with the beaches and the land and the ocean, and to have this link that is necessary for them for their reproduction is very fascinating for me. And also it's getting us more into climate change and beach erosion, and what could we do to maybe help protect every stage of their life. So this is giving them an even more fascinating life cycle that I really love.
And for me, I think it's the way that how they can find their way, and for example, their nesting sites. Because, for example, on Techara, it's an island of 12 little islands where they nest. And so we can because we did this monitoring since 2007 now. And so there are turtles that came back after 6 years. And for example, we know some turtles that came 3 times and that we observed. And each time they come to nest, they come exactly at the same little island, and even exactly at the same place, more or less. It's very, very close. While we tag them, and we know that they do more than 1,000 kilometers of migration, and they just come back at the same little island. So for me, this is a fascinating fact of sea turtles.
They're great sailors, aren't they? Better than not. We have a lot to learn from them. Thank you so much today for sharing. Will you guys attend the ISDS in Hawaii? Will everyone be able to meet you?
Yes,
Yeah.
the two of us will go for sure.
Look
Yes.
at you. It's lucky. So I'm hoping
Okay,
that everyone that's I hope that the people that will watch us are members as well. If anyone goes, then you'll know that you can reach out to Dr. Jade and Cécile and introduce yourselves and your rescue centers too. It was really lovely having you both here today, and we will be sharing the pictures that you've also been kindly shared with us so that everyone can see the beautiful place that you work in, and the incredible job you've been doing over there. So thank you so much for making the time to talk to me today. And if anyone is also more interested in getting more information, they have a website, temanotemoana.org. They'll have Instagram, Facebook. So they're all over, and you can definitely get more peeks into their work and maybe even join them in their conservation efforts onto that side of the Pacific. And I will let you all go for your lovely evenings or mornings because I'm in the evening time. They're all starting their day of tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.